So today is Friday. It's been a fast week. Friday, June the 18th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And the Android is still not updated. I worked with India this morning on it, and it has to do with Google and the Android version, the software version now, not the phone, where version Android 11 has something in it that it doesn't want to do something unless you do all access. And we're not giving all access. So we're doing a little modification on that one. It's the big part is in the Dragon Klingon game, and where it saves your score. And so what's going to happen on that until Google gets their stuff worked out is that they can still play the game and it'll show them their score at the end, but it will not save it until the next time that we can make a release when Google's got their issue worked out. But they can look at their score and then they can start over, but it'll lose the score on the Dragon Klingon game. It works on the iPhone. So anyway, we're working all that out and continue throughout today and this weekend, so hopefully we'll have it going by Monday. But we welcome you to the show. Welcome, Michael.
Technology. So nice when it works, isn't it?
I know.
Thank you for sticking to it. That's how many hours you put into that, conversations and back and forth. And welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here with us today. We're moving forward with the sharing of the principles of first century Aramaic forgiveness on a global scale, looking to create a record that becomes available. And we certainly appreciate this technology that we have with Blog Talk Radio. We understand that there have been some challenges and difficulties in getting into the show, and our apology for that. Unfortunately, sometimes there are technological problems with Blog Talk that are kind of out of our control. Unfortunately, they don't respond very well to challenges like that. So our apology if that's occurred with you. And in the meantime, we're delighted that you're back here to be part of this conversation. And Miss Jeannie, do we have a hand up from Mitzi, who was going to call it at the beginning of the show? She wasn't sure she was going to be able to, but I told her that we'd open a space with her if she was available.
Yes, she is on. So 517.
Awesome.
Miss Mitzi, welcome.
Hi, thanks, folks.
Hey there, young lady.
I had a conversation with you this morning, Michael. Perhaps you could set the context a little bit for the listeners before we jump into the emotional release technique you shared with me?
Absolutely. So we had a conversation about an issue that Mitzi was having, and she asked for some feedback on a responsibility communication. And in our talking about it, it turned out there were perhaps some emotional ties with this person that end up interfering. Jeannie, you've got something to share with me?
Pull it just a little away from your mouth because I can hear you breathing in it.
Okay. See if that gets better. We're working on microphones here. So I suggested to Mitzi that she might want to do the release technique, which is a really simple process. In fact, most people would look at it and say, what could that ever do? But I'll just share that over the years, I've seen some profound changes happen in relationships when this simple process is engaged in. And so just offered to do it, and Mitzi came back with, well, let's do it on the radio show, then everybody gets to share in it. So glad you made that suggestion, Mitzi, and glad you're here to do it. Thank you for the privilege of serving.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So for everybody in our audience that's listening, the way the process works, it's a matter of just centering your awareness in a certain part of the brain, and we'll direct you to that part of the brain. And if you've got anybody that in your life where you have a lot of emotional reactions to them, then this is a tool that can just cut those emotional reactions and leave you in a place where instead of having to react emotionally to things, you can act consciously, purposely, and enter, fully conscious dialogue, and, that tends to simply move relationships forward. And we're going to bring in the concept of Rukha to Kudsha from the Aramaic. And in the Aramaic language, those words, Rukha to Kudsha, speak of a feminine elemental force inside of us that undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. And so, let's say one of our errors might be to become emotionally attached in reactions with folks. And so this is exactly where, from the Aramaic, Rukha fits into healing our lives. And so we're going to call on, there'll be a release statement, and we're going to call on that power just so everybody knows what we're speaking of. We're going to short form it to Rukha, and so that will be the release statement. And before we go to that, we want you to think about somebody in your life where perhaps you've got some emotional attachments, and just bring them to awareness. And then imagine that I have two pencils of light in my hands. And I'm in the room with you, and I place one of these pencils of light directly in through the center of your forehead, what people might call the third eye. So I'm going to imagine I'm placing one of those pencils in as you breathe and get centered. And then I'm going to place the second pencil of light through the top, very center of the top of your skull, what people might call the crown. And the reason for doing that is because that centering there seems to be an effective place from which to do this emotional release. It's like where the emotional strings can be cut. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is just imagine that I've placed those two pencils of light there, and allow yourself to center in the place where those two pencil tips would meet. And Mitzi, I'll just ask you to do that, and when you're there, let me know. I'll give it a few seconds for others to get centered, and then we'll go into the release statement.
I'm there.
So let me know, okay? And then allow a picture of the person involved to come to mind. So you're centered in that place where the two pencil tips would meet. Give you a moment to really get centered there.
I've got the picture.
Okay. So everybody, you're centered there. You've got the picture. We'll give you another few seconds to do that. And then addressing Rukha. Rukha, you're asking for help. I release all attachment to, and speak that person's name.
Rukha, I release all attachment. Rukha, I release all attachments to Aspen.
And breathe. As I said, it's a pretty simple process. Do you notice anything happening in your hands or your feet or your face?
I noticed my third eye is active. It's tingling, but I noticed it as soon as I put the pencil of light there. I don't notice anything beyond that at this point.
Okay, cool.
Well, a tendency perhaps to breathe more shallow.
Okay. Well, I'd invite you to consciously, purposely breathe a little deeper, because that will enhance any release that's happening. And usually what people will experience when that energy starts to move is they'll experience some energy moving in their heads, as you mentioned, in your third eye area. It can be different places in the head, and or it tends to move in the hands and or the feet. There'll oftentimes be a tingling sensation or just, a sensation of energy moving.
Right.
And if it comes to mind to, center yourself and do the exercise again, you might do that, but that's how simple it is. And it seems, overly simple, but I've just watched it make some major changes in people's lives, especially where there were conflicts happening.
Yep. Sometimes the simple things are the best, right? Like breathing.
Yeah, exactly. Did you notice anything happen with the picture that you were holding in your mind?
I became aware of some potential content for forgiveness. That I've already done some forgiveness around with this particular topic and this friend and the issue that we're having. I have done some goal canceling and some forgiveness, but I became aware of something else that I'm still perhaps holding on to. So I guess that would be more of a mental exercise or a physiological exercise, and that this perhaps is more of an emotional, perhaps freed me up emotionally to see that other piece, the piece that's underneath it.
Sweet. Well, is there anything we can support you with? Or is it just something you're ready to go sit down, do a worksheet with?
I'm going to do a worksheet. I got to go.
All right.
I appreciate that. I've done that technique before. I just didn't recall. It just isn't in the forefront of my toolbox, but I do remember doing it with my son Journey several times with your guidance or recommendation, and yes, it did help then too. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, good breath. We'll be holding the space for you, young lady.
I appreciate you. And all the listeners, thank you for the moment.
All right.
Thank
you. Take care. Have a blessed day.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. For what I'm speaking, that you're going to hear me accurately. For instance, if you were brought up totally and completely isolated from the Aramaic and brought up in the Greek world, be rather, let's say, what will my word be? In a state of some kind of disturbance, if somebody told you that you had sinned, you know, that Greek language has all kinds of connotations, all kinds of really bizarre meanings attached to it. So people who have the Greek brain cells for sin, when they'd hear that word, might find themselves somewhat disturbed. In the Aramaic language, the word sin is an archery term. When you fire at the bullseye and you miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells, "Sin, you're off the mark." So if in the Aramaic context I said, well, you have sinned, and you were Greek, if you heard me saying those words in English and your background was coming through Greek translations, you might think yourself, let's say it gently, something that you're not, and take on an identity that's a total fraud. I remember one time Jeannie and I were invited to go to a large church in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, televangelist type thing. Not the place we'd normally go, but we were invited, so we went. And there were a couple thousand people in the room. And we happened to be there on a day where they invited, or they were having an induction of young people into the church to become members. And for me, knowing that the word sin is an archery term that simply means off the mark, you know, my Aramaic brain cells say that has absolutely nothing to do with your identity, you know. And so here's the preacher, he brings these young people up, pretty impressionable young people up to the front. He says, okay, now you're going to become members of the church, and the first thing that we're going to ask you to do is to admit or proclaim yourself a sinner. You know, to translate an archery term that means off the mark into an identity of self and claiming that you are that is just a totally, completely bizarre and outrageously destructive behavior, destructive thing to tell somebody to do. You know, we've talked the last couple of days about the word diagnosis. Very similar. Somebody says, well, I'm a, and put any diagnosis you want behind it, and you proclaim yourself that. Now, there may be energetic patterns that reflect what people call the ABC disease or the XYZ disease, but when you realize that you're a creator, and probably the greatest atrocity done to us as human beings down through the ages and that we've bought into, is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators, and it is with our words that we literally organize this energy system called life, and we bought into that lie, or that hiding the faculty of creatorship from ourselves, and then people go around and follow the words I am with their diagnosis. And the destructiveness of that is just incalculable. Watching those kids get up and proclaim, and they were forced to say the words. Pardon me, I guess I shouldn't say forced, that's my perceptual construct. They were asked to, but it sure looked like a lot of pressure. And once you proclaim something, I have the ABC disease, knowing that we live in an energy system, we've just reinforced the energy. Maybe there's some markers of that dis-ease energy within you, but there's no entity called disease until we solidify it, lock it in. And one of the ways to lock it in and create it for ourselves is with our words. So that's kind of the conversation we've been having with Richard at this point. And so his answer to the question about the first-year student in chemistry is, of course not. I would want a competent, experienced instructor who knows. I would at least want the input of someone who had actually performed the experiment and had it work, came his emphatic reply. Would it be wise to demand the same from a person you choose to assist you in your spiritual process? Would it be equally wise to qualify the person who helps you reach a conclusion about such a thing as whether the spiritual dimension even exists? Many have never thought of consciously choosing their spiritual leaders or considering what appropriate criteria are for making the choice. There are voices in the world that scream there is no spiritual life and all religion is a hoax. It amazes me how many people unthinkingly follow the advice of those voices. Have you ever asked yourself what qualifies them to give you advice? I find the fact that people listen to these voices especially shocking. I consider that the majority of those advisors are screaming out of their own pain, which tends to render them unconscious. Many tend to listen to those voices, and in succeeding years, when the words of the unqualified echo in their heads, they mistake those thoughts as their own. And so our invitation is to, if you want to accomplish something that you hold as a goal, and you realize that you need instruction on that, it would obviously be wise to have someone who's successfully had the experience to instruct you on how to do that. And so we've got some criteria that we'll be covering later in the book for making that determination, but that'll get us a good start on the ideas of this chapter for today. And if you're out there in listener land and you have any thoughts or questions about those ideas or anything to do with any of the work, our core work is that of forgiveness. And forgiveness, it's another case of who are you listening to? Whose brain cell content are you going with? The Greeks will tell you, well, if you're in pain, somebody did something really terrible to you and caused your pain, but, you should really be big about it and forgive them. And if that instruction makes sense to you, then I lament for the way your life is going to go. Because that's an absolutely ludicrous thought from the Aramaic perspective. I'll offer, never, ever, ever forgive anyone, including yourself, for anything. Because you can't. If you don't have the eyes to see and the ears to hear what the man Yeshua was saying when he said forgive, then that Greek substitute, and it's a challenging concept for people to get past. I mean, over the years, I've watched people be engaged in this work for literally for 20 years, and they're still talking about forgiving somebody for what they did. Now, if you're going to carry out the Greek act of letting somebody off the hook because they did something out of alignment with integrity to you, then that's a perfectly appropriate thing to do, but that's got nothing whatsoever to do with forgiveness. That's the act of pardoning. I let you off the hook for what you did to me. And by the way, when you did that, it brought a lot of pain up for me. I realized that I've got pain around having watched you do that behavior. And while my mind used to tell me that you were the cause of my pain because you did that and that caused my pain, I've built the brain cells from the Aramaic to recognize that if there's pain in me, I'm the one who's responsible, and that all that pain means is that there's an energy inside of me that doesn't belong inside of me. And if you give me the gift, this turns around when you build the brain cells into, if you give me the gift of showing me the pain that I've hidden from myself, then instead of thinking about forgiving you, if you did something really bizarre, I might still choose to pardon you. But then, if I understand correctly what the word means, I'm going to own, when that was done, it brought up pain for me, and now I'm going to apply forgiveness to my pain to remove my pain, so that I don't have to live in the world of why is this happening to me again? It's the title of our book. Why is this happening to me again? I'm a creator. I hold this mind energy. This mind energy that doesn't belong in me warns me of its presence by giving me the signal that there's pain there. If I see that signal, I recognize that my energy system is telling me that there's something going on in me. There's an energy inside of me that doesn't belong in me. And what I want to do in that case, as opposed to let you off the hook for the fact that it's there, or to blame you for the fact that it's there, is I want to apply the tool of forgiveness to remove that energy which is causing my pain. And, pain is a natural part of life. Now, you'll notice I said natural, not necessary. It's become the norm in our culture because we've bought into all kinds of lies about ourselves. And so if we live in the confusion of blame, of drama and trauma, of generational hostility and fear, it will be a natural thing to have the feedback mechanism of pain telling us that there's something going on inside of us that doesn't belong there. And every time that pain occurs, it's an invitation to go inside and clean up whatever's there. And it doesn't matter what kind of pain it is. It can be physical. It can be mental or emotional. It can be rage or guilt or fear or hatred or vengeance. Emotional type things. It can be mental. We've been talking the last couple of days about what the world calls mental disorders, and they're not disorders. They are perfectly ordered. They are perfect feedback mechanisms that tell us and invite us into doing a piece of work. There's some work to do here. energies like anxiety and fear and depression are simply the natural way that your energy system gives you wonderful feedback. But if you've been told all your life that when your energy system is giving you that feedback, there's something wrong with you, and you buy that, you just drop into the next level of thought disorder that the culture's fed to you. We're here to put out a hand and raise you up out of those thought disorders. If you have depression, there's nothing wrong with you. There are simply thought disorders going on in your mind, and what you need are tools with which to reach into yourself and remove those things. You're not broken. You don't need fixed, but you've got work to do. You know, if I've got a house and I let it go over a period of years, it might come to the point where, well, I need some repairs on the floor. You know, somebody walked across the floor and their foot went through. That's a warning signal that I need to do some repair in the house. So all of those energetic patterns we've been talking about the last couple of days are simply warning signals that say, and an invitation, come on in and do some work. Get conscious here. And if you don't have the tools, then acquire the tools if you don't have the skills. Now, if you've been introduced to, or perhaps haven't been introduced to, the Aramaic forgiveness process yet, we invite you to go to our website. The website is www.whyagain.org. And in the upper left-hand corner of the website, you'll see a link that says Start Here. Click that link, and that will walk you through everything you need to know. Or at least, let me say it differently. Everything that Jeannie and I could think, and a lot of our friends have supported us by, why don't you put this on the website and that on the website? Everything that we could come up with that could support you in integrating actual forgiveness into your life. Forgiveness meaning removal of sin, removal of energies that are off the mark. And so there's a technology to it. There's a how-to, And, when you look at how deeply traumatized so much of our world is, how many marriages end in divorce? How many young people are committing suicide? The kinds of traumas going on around us, then you realize that there's a lot of that energy that is off the mark in each person experiencing that. And, to a large degree, the culture set up a business that supports those things continuing for money. If you go to whyagain.org, upper left-hand corner, click Start Here, and it's free. You don't need a penny. And you don't need a penny for us to support you. Click that link, start following all the links that will open. There are radio shows where either Dr. Tim or Jeannie or myself have walked somebody through a worksheet. There are worksheets, several different versions of the forgiveness process. There are several complementary worksheets that will walk you through developing the skills of moving out of every and any form of hostility or fear and restoring yourself to the awareness of yourself as the presence of love. If you want to invest in doing that, then there are DVDs, there are CDs, there's a streaming service for all of our DVDs now, so they're available. You can go to App Store in your phone, as Jeannie was talking about earlier, and it's still taking, we're still going through some challenges with the Android. Apparently the latest Android update 11 has some problems that Google hasn't worked out yet, so we're adapting to that, and hopefully by Monday, as Jeannie said, that will be on the website, in the App Store. But just go into your app store, whatever kind of phone you have, and type in the words HeartLand, HeartLand, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. You'll be looking at the world's first forgiveness app, actually the world's only forgiveness app. Thank you, Jeannie, for your creation, and it is awesome. So you can do the forgiveness process right there. There's a kids game called the Dragon Klingon game for introducing kids to the forgiveness process. And the newest section that's been put in, and it's already uploaded into the iPhone App Store, so you can go to your iPhone App Store and just type in those words, and you'll be looking at that, the latest complete version of the app. And of course, on the Android, we're still working through that. The original version is still there, still very effective and very functional, and the new version hopefully will be up within the next couple of days. And so there are lots of ways to access the tools. And then as you start to access them, I can only imagine there are going to be questions. And we're here to provide support and answers for those questions. So 5 days a week, an hour a day. And, if you're listening, you are welcome to call in any day, every day that you have questions about this work. And we're here to support you and to do our best in answering those questions. Anytime you have a need for support through an issue, we're here to support you in doing that. That's the whole purpose of this radio show. And if you happen to be on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show between noon and 2 o'clock, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. First hour, Dr. Tim does. Second hour, Jeannie and I do. And we're here to answer questions and support you. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet.
It's all quiet today. Well, gee, I would think that all these topics coming up would open a space. By the way, if anybody wants to join us on Sunday, am I correct, Jeannie? Do you know offhand the time is 11 o'clock on Sunday for the service at Unity in Columbus?
We'll open it up. Hold on just 1 second.
Well, Jeannie's looking at that. If you want to join us on Sunday morning, I believe it's at 11 Eastern Time, you can go to the Facebook page of Unity of Columbus in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to be doing their Father's Day Sunday service. And if you want to join us for that, that would be awesome. We're going to be looking at forgiveness in the context of relationships with dads. And just kind of...
It is at 11 o'clock Eastern Time.
At 11 o'clock, okay. So Unity of Columbus, Ohio, if you want to join us on Sunday, that would be awesome. And beyond that, how can we support you? What's on your mind? If you're out there in listener land, if I were in your hometown and, let's say Jeannie and I were traveling, which we're not doing anymore, by the way, which is kind of nice after 40 years of being on the road. But if we were and we just finished having a conversation about what we've been talking about this, 40 minutes or so, 35 minutes, and we walked down off the platform, completed our presentation, you were sitting in the audience, maybe it's at your local church or your local university or library or community center or whatever, jail perhaps. We've spent a lot of time in jail over the years, a lot of different jails around the country and prisons. But if we were there and we walked off the platform, what would you be coming over to ask us? What would be on your mind? And the reason for this show is to present some of the basic ideas from this work and then open the space for conversation, open the space for questions. What's on your mind? Is there anything about what I've said that needs clarification or that doesn't make sense or that you don't agree with? If you push one, we'll be having a conversation, and we'd love to hear from you. Call a number again. If you're on one of those stations where we cannot see you, it's 563-999-3581. looks like we've got about 21 or 22 minutes left, so there's plenty of room for conversation. Let's say hello. Hello out there, push 1. What's on your mind? And, if it's like, well, gee, my voice is shaky. I don't know if I want to be on the radio. Well, can you make it okay for your voice to be shaky and ask your question anyway? Or, gee, I'm new to this, so I don't even know what question to ask. I'm nervous. Well, can you make being nervous okay? And, oftentimes someone who's totally new to this work brings up one of the most basic questions, and it opens a space for even the most advanced students to really go back and look at their roots and the structure they're working on, the mental structure, and oftentimes fill in the blanks. So if you're totally and completely new, we'd love to hear your voice. And we have no hands up, Jeannie. Everything is quiet on the home front?
It is totally quiet.
Well, that's kind of strange. I thought, I'm going to throw out one more set of thoughts that came to mind as I was reading that passage from the book. And if it doesn't stir up conversation, we'll assume that everybody's quite happy with what they've got right now, and we'll let the show close. But another thought that came to mind is an example of how the Greek mistranslations have been applied to the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua. Is if you go back, you'll find that, and I don't remember exactly, it was a couple of years ago that I went back and counted, it's 15 or 16 times, Yeshua says to his audience, fear not. And then you oftentimes will stand in church today and you'll hear a preacher saying that fear of the Creator is the beginning of wisdom. And we see just, a total turning around of his words and the meaning of his words. And what he was, another popular thing in this culture, in the 32, or many of the 32,000 different sects of Christianity, which is what there are, you'll hear the words that say, well, there's nothing you can do. And yet, if you go back to listen to the man in Aramaic, he gives many, many, many instructions as to what you can do. In fact, there's one passage there where, they ask him, what do we need to do to please the Creator? And Yeshua's response is, he gives them an idiom, but he gives them a response. He tells them what to do, and literally half of his audience, half of his disciples at that point, got up and left. And their words were, too hard a saying. In other words, I don't want to have to dig in and do my work. And I suspect that that's the crew that made up the theology that says, well, there's nothing you can do. You're just a helpless, hopeless, and I won't even repeat the word that goes with it that I mentioned earlier. And you're a helpless, hopeless, you're off the mark with your arrow person. I mean, it just becomes so silly and ludicrous, and so many dive into that as though it's gospel. And it's anything but. And so, there are several books out there that you might want to get a hold of and check out. There's a man named Rocco Errico who's rewriting some of the texts of George Lamsa. George was a native Aramaic speaker, and of course he challenges the Greek translations all over the place. You'll hear Greek experts just want to tear him down. But his native language was Aramaic, and he speaks in context of the Aramaic language. And I've read lots of stories of the Greek scholars who have very skillful ways of trying to degrade him and back their audience from someone who's telling them what the words actually meant originally. So there's a book called Gospel Light, More Light on the Gospel, Old Testament Light, Idioms of the Bible Explained. They were originally written by George Lambsa, and Rocco Errico is a protege of Lambsa's, and he's been, with Lambsa's permission, rewriting those to update them and uncover new information from the original Aramaic, first century meanings of Yeshua's words. So you might look up those texts by George Lambsa and or Rocco Errico. We have a book in our catalog called Enlightenment, which is what we've translated and published so far from the text that we're working with, which is a 10th century copy of a 1st century 164 AD text. And so that's in our catalog. If you want to order that, it's a 3-part book, which starts out with a story about the Khabouris manuscript. It's called the Khabouris because it was found in the Khabur River in Turkey. So it starts out with a story about how that was found and how the project came about. There's some select passages from the New Testament, and in those passages, the key words are left in brackets in the Aramaic, and then in the back of the book, there's a 1st century dictionary. And 25 of the world's top Aramaists worked very diligently to establish the 1st century meanings of those words so that in context they could be understood. So you can take the Aramaic words left in brackets, go back into the dictionary, and take a look at what did those words actually mean. And some of it is just mind-boggling. And one of my favorites comes out of the Beatitudes, and the Greeks will say we wrote it down first, which is a ludicrous idea. If you know of any Semitic peoples, can you imagine? They have a written system of language. Can you imagine them going to the Greeks and saying, "By the way, Greeks, would you write this down for us because we don't know how to do it?" I mean, it's just silly. But this one particular simple little line verifies that the primary source for these words is the Aramaic, not the Greek. And so if you look at the Beatitudes from Matthew 5, the first Beatitude they tell us is, "Blessed are they who are poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, remember that Yeshua was spoken about a spiritual being called Rukha that he's here to connect us with. And he said, you can even deny me, but don't deny this. And right there, that has been denied. And so what does that passage say in the Aramaic? The first word in the Beatitudes, each of them, is tuvehun. It's a 3-part word in Aramaic. It does not mean anything that relates to blessed are they. What it says in Aramaic is that a latent or an unconscious neural structure implanted by the Creator to guide you to happiness and well-being will become your conscious possession, you who, and then each of the Beatitudes is a set of instructions. It's not a story about a nice philosophy, it's a set of instructions. And what is the instruction? Now, in the Aramaic language, the smallest letters are called a jot and a tittle. And those smallest letters would be represented by, be about the same as a fly speck on a piece of paper. So the word in Aramaic was those whose home, not those who are poor, but those whose home. And if you take the word poor and the fly lands on it and gets a fly speck on the page, then the word home is changed to poor. So now they're telling us we should be poor in spirit. And in Aramaic, that word spirit would be the eternal forces from the Creator. So you're told, instead of living in your head, instead of living in hostility or fear, instead of living in your diagnosis, the objective is have the home you live in, the source of your thinking is those eternal forces from the Creator. And the eternal forces are based in love. And then what it says is, for theirs will be a heavenly estate. In other words, you're going to live. If you look at the mistranslation of the words "the kingdom of heaven," in Aramaic, it doesn't speak about the kingdom of heaven. It says the community of love. So in essence, what that beatitude says, if your home is, if you're living from, if you're thinking from, if you're feeling from that which the Creator put in you in the beginning, that latent neural structure, which for most people, because of the pain they hold, is unconscious. If you do your work, you contact what's underneath the surface, you bring that forward, and when you do, when your home is there, then you live literally connected to love 24/7, 365. Now go look at every passage based in love, and then you'll see exactly how important that concept is. It's like number one. But the Greeks are going to say you had to be poor in spirit. And so there are, oh great, there are just literally thousands of ideas in the Aramaic that have been just totally bowled over by Greek mistranslations. Let's say hello to our caller, sweetie.
It is area code 517. This is Rex or Misty?
It's Rex, actually, and it's wonderful to hear your voice. And I met the chiropractor, so he's just working with a patient, and he's going to be calling me in to see him right now. So I've been hoping that,
cool.
I know you weren't talking. I just wanted to say, Michael, that I get the opportunity for the audience as well to work with your material every single day. I teach it, I live it, I breathe it, and every single day I get deeper and deeper insights as to the brilliance of the body of work that you have created. And just genuine, authentic appreciation for
breathing
you and Jeannie and everything you do. So really appreciate it, and it's a blessing to be a part of this work and to be bringing it forward to the world. And that's really what I wanted to say, and I got to go. I love you, and I appreciate you immeasurably.
Have an awesome adjustment.
Go ahead.
Is this the chiropractor that we know?
So,
okay.
Yeah, Dr. Dan.
The chiropractor we've
I
been
think
to
you went to see Dr. Dan one time when you were here.
Yeah, tell him we said hello.
He's amazing.
Send our love.
He's doing some more work with a patient. I'll sit here. I thought he was going to call me in because they were standing up again. I'm standing outside. But I just really, you think after, over 40 years that I'd have a pretty good handle on all the material, quote, you know what I mean? But the fact is it's living, breathing, growing, and changing, and it represents, for me, the changes that are happening within me open up, and I've even heard you use the words, the brain cells, but in my language, it opens up the understanding that I'm capable of having by letting go of my preconceived ideas about the way I thought it was. And that's just an ongoing daily thing, and I embrace each new opportunity. And I welcome the healing. And I've even gotten to a point, Michael, and this is where we all have an opportunity to get to, is when an opportunity comes up for healing, to embrace it rather than fight against it. And it has been a common activity for me to kind of resist, oh no, there's more pain here, and oh no, that isn't fun, or oh no, this doesn't feel good. And really, Mark and I, our team and our group are all about saying, hey, pardon the background noise, the Harley just pulled up beside me. Just really embracing the opportunity for healing, no matter what it is. And it's an ongoing process, but when I present myself to it from a place of embracing love, it's so much easier, and I get the insights a lot faster. So I appreciate
I'm with you. I hear you. It's certainly a growing, ongoing process, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah. And again, thank you for everything. And he's calling me in now. So I love you all, and blessings, and I look forward to talking with you.
All right. Well, tell him we said hello, and have a wonderful adjustment.
Awesome. Thank you.
Blessings. Bye-bye. Well, Miss Jeannie?
We have 6 minutes, and we do not have another hand up, so we've got time. We could do one more topic really fast.
We could, yeah. So if you're out there in listener land and anything we've said has stimulated any questions or any curiosity, please push one. Let's talk. And if nobody has a thought or a question for us, I'm complete. So maybe we'll just let loose, close out the show, and say to everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world, and blessings.